I'll find you someone who loves a microphone as much as Jerry Jones loves a microphone. Jeez, the Cowboys win total down to 9.5 after opening 10.5 at ESPN BET. Dallas has 12 wins each of their last 3 seasons. ESPN Analytics projecting the Cowboys for 10.3 W's this year, so leaning to the over. All right, Joe. A lot of drama surrounding Dallas and what? What drama are you talking about? Does it make you inclined, what we've seen so far this offseason in training camp, to play the Cowboys under their win total?
First of all, on behalf of everyone in the sports talk radio industry, keep talking, Jerry. We love you. You're great content. I absolutely would play under 9.5 wins for the Cowboys. It opened 10.5 and got bet down for good reason, right? That's not exactly public money knocking that down. Let's start with the fact that last year, Dallas's schedule, where they won 12 games, featured 11 games against teams that ranked in the bottom third of the league in efficiency. Of course, your offense is going to chew up the schedule when you're facing a bunch of bad defenses. Dak's coming off a career year. CeeDee Lamb's coming off a career year. The O-line's got some issues. Yep. The running back position's got some issues. Defensively, Sam Williams is out for the year with a knee injury. The secondary had, 5? They were 5th in turnover differential last year, and Dallas's defense had 6 touchdowns. 6 touchdowns by the defense. Do you expect them to replicate that this year? No. And when that starts to fall off, we know that turnovers are more predictive of wins and losses than any other metric out there. So no, under 9.5 wins is the play.
I'm with you. I loved it at 10.5. Now, of course, you're getting a much different price, 10.5 versus 9.5. However, I think you make great points about what Dallas has done on paper this season to improve upon or at least sustain that 12-win team. Losing their starting center, losing their starting left tackle, losing their wide receiver too, losing their starting running back, losing pieces on defense as well, including the coordinator, Dan Quinn, who had done such a wonderful job with that scheme built around Micah Parsons. Will it be the same under Mike Zimmer? He's got credibility, but we shall see on the field. Bottom line is I look around at Philadelphia, Washington, and New York Giants in the NFC East. I think all you can credibly say on paper got better this offseason. I don't think you can say that about the Cowboys.
We laid all that out. We didn't mention the star wide receiver isn't in camp. The top pass rusher wants a new contract. The quarterback wants a new contract. And with every game being a pressure-packed game for Prescott, we know how he handles those. And the head coach is in a lame duck year. We mentioned all that without even bringing those things up. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors working against Big D this season.
All right, good luck, Jerry, and stay in front of those microphones for people like Fortenbaugh. All right, let's talk about that star wide receiver, though, because you can bet on how many yards CeeDee Lamb will produce receiving this season. At ESPN Bet, that player prop, 1,300.5 yards. Without seeing him in camp or in preseason games, Joe, what kind of confidence do you have in him going over that number?
Almost none. He's a star player, but there's a lot of factors working against him here. Number one, anytime someone's coming off a career year, good or bad, I'm looking to bet against that the next year. So if it's an all-time terrible year, looking to bet on the guy. If it's an all-time great year, I'm looking to bet against him. CeeDee had over 1,700 receiving yards last year, but here's what you want to keep in mind. 7 of their 17 games came against the 6th worst pass defenses in the NFL. Think about that for a second. 7 of 17 games against the 6 worst pass defenses in the NFL. 11 of 17, as we mentioned earlier, came against teams that ranked in the bottom third in efficiency on defense. It was an easy schedule for the Dallas offense. The offensive line is going to struggle more this year. Prescott's going to have less time to get the ball out of his hands. When you add all those things together, I don't think it makes for a huge year for CeeDee Lamb. That's not knocking the player. He's fantastic. I just think when you bring all the variables to the table, it's not a guy that's going for over 1,300 yards.
I feel you. I'm kind of on under or pass. What scares me is that if CeeDee Lamb is healthy enough to play 15, 16, 17 games, it's hard not to imagine him going over this number regardless of the defenses that he plays, because there's really no one else for Dak Prescott to throw the football to. He could, again, if he plays 15, 16, 17 games, lead the NFL in targets. However, missing training camp, practices, and the way you prepare your body to play 17 games of an NFL season is a good way to avoid playing 17 games. Injury risk, I think, is higher now for someone like CeeDee.
Orlovsky was talking about that this morning on Get Up. The fact that he's not in camp, running the routes, getting his body into football shape, working with Prescott on all that stuff, that's problematic to try to hit the ground running in week 1.
All right.
So let's take a look at those Jets and some other teams with a full dissection of public plays. You may recognize this guy from Deadliest Catch, Dan Orlovsky, fisherman extraordinaire. We're going to run some...
What a jerk.
I was a big fan of the fish. I didn't make any jokes. Thanks.
It's like a rear view mirror. The size wasn't accurate.
It's a starter fish.
Yeah.
It's a good starter fish. We work our way up. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you 4 of the most popular to win their division plays. Okay. You're going to let us know if you agree, disagree, things of that nature, right? Sure. We'll begin with the aforementioned New York Jets. 42% of all bets to win the AFC East are on the New York Jets. Now, their current price is plus 185. What that means is basically 35%. Do they have a greater than, less than, or equal to 35% chance of winning the AFC East? Yes, there will be math.
2 hours ago, I would have said a little bit greater than, because this team is talented enough to win the division, and they have to get the finger crossed moment of everybody staying healthy. The Hassan Reddick news impacts that.
Yep.
Bryce Huff, who was their best edge rusher, gone to the Philadelphia Eagles. The trade happens for Reddick. If he doesn't play, then this is a lesser defensive unit. There's more stress on everybody. I still believe this offense is going to be good enough to go and win that division. Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, I think this is going to be a significantly improved offensive line. But because of that news, and even before it, I still favor the Buffalo Bills as the heavy favorite. And if Hassan Reddick is not there, I think if the Dolphins can get healthy, they become just as much in the conversation as the New York Jets.
Okay, so based on pricing, we might be looking elsewhere. Maybe a buy low on Buffalo now that Diggs is gone. Maybe a buy low on Miami, who struggled to beat good teams, but that was last year. This year could be different. You mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go to the NFC East. Because of the rebuild projects in Washington and New York, and what's been going on with Dallas, heavy favorites. 57% of the tickets are on the Eagles to win the division. Now, when you look at a price of minus 130, that implies about 56%.
Sure.
A 56% chance of winning the division. Do you like them this year? Do you think someone else rises up?
I do. I do like the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot is going to be dependent on how Jalen Hurts seamlessly transitions and fits into that Kellen Moore offense, who's their new offensive coordinator, the impact of Saquon Barkley behind the best, by far, offensive line that he's ever played behind. The young guys on defense have got to show up. The Jordan Davises, the Jalen Carters, the Quinyon Mitchells, their draft picks are going to have to play big-time football. Dallas has got question marks. I heard you guys in segment 1 talking about some of the issues in Dallas. I still think that the Commanders and the Giants are going to have a say. I'm going to lean a little bit more with the Commanders, but I do favor the Eagles within that division.
I do like that. Canty's been talking about them as well. A lot of quiet build-up on the Commanders, possibly surprising some people this year. All right, we talked about a couple of favorites, teams that could make a deep run. Take a look at the NFC North. It's the Bears. Despite all the love for Green Bay, and despite everything Detroit's done the last couple seasons, the Bears are taking the tickets, 42%. Now, if you look at the price
to win the division.
To win the division, 3-to-1 odds, so that it basically implies a 25% chance. Would you take a flyer on them this year?
No, I still think that both Green Bay and Detroit are better. I think that this is going to be the best division in football, and so the Bears can be a really good football team and not win the division. That's a tall task. Now, they've got a lot of the elements that you say, hey, play meaningful games in December and make a playoff, we're in contention run, but Detroit and Green Bay are proven. They've got the quarterbacks that are proven, and they've got both sides of the line of scrimmage that are a little bit more of a solid foundation, but I certainly think Chicago's going to be in it. And if we're going to sit there and say Chicago's going to be in it, I actually favor the Vikings maybe a step ahead of the Chicago Bears, because I think that their offense, no matter who the quarterbacks play, is going to be fantastic. And Brian Flores, their defensive coordinator, is as good as anybody. So, again, this division, top to bottom, is going to be very deep.
J.J. McCarthy's like 20-to-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Do you like him to make some noise?
20-to-1?
20-to-1, he's a long shot.
Absolutely love that.
All right. Little bonus play here from Dan Orlovsky. Let's keep it moving to the Pittsburgh. One note real quick on Detroit. I want to bring this up. They won't play outdoors until November.
Yeah.
Only 3 outdoor games this year. Jared Goff's indoor-outdoor splits are huge. No one's talking about that.
Good for him, good for the Lions.
Very good for the Lions. All right, now to the aforementioned Pittsburgh Steelers. Worst odds of anyone in the AFC North to win the division, and yet they're taking the most tickets. 60% is the count. That implies an 11% chance. Given what they'd have to navigate, Mike Tomlin, could you see that happening?
No, and why are so many people betting on it if the odds are so low? I still believe that Cincinnati, with the healthy Joe Burrow, is the team to beat within this division. But I could point to you that Cleveland's roster is as good as anybody, and if they get Deshaun Watson second half against the Baltimore Ravens last year, man, they are going to win the division. And Baltimore still has the two-time MVP. Now, there's missing pieces to Baltimore. Defensive coordinator has moved on to the Seattle Seahawks, and certainly some defensive pieces. Pittsburgh's going to be in it, but to win their division, knowing that more than likely they're going to have the worst quarterback play within the division, unless Arthur Smith, who's their offensive coordinator, says, hey, we're going to go quarterback run like the Ravens did early on with Lamar, and Justin Fields going to be our guy. I still think that there's too many hurdles because that division, the AFC North, is very similar to the NFC North, very deep.
Joe, what you are going to do for the people is make a list, because we're told people like lists.
We've heard.
And your list, incontrovertible. Absolutely nothing can be argued about its validity. But before we give them that power ranking list, I first want you to tell the people what constitutes a good MVP wager.
Two key criteria you want to look for right off the bat: position and do they win. Seems obvious, but this is what the voters look for. Number one, do you play the quarterback position? 11 straight MVPs have played quarterback. 16 of the last 17 have played quarterback. Number two, do you win a lot of games? A 1 seed has won MVP in 15 of the last 19 seasons. A 1 or 2 seed, as you can see there, has won in 17 of the last 19 seasons. So if you're thinking about going outside the quarterback position or with someone who might snag a 5 or 6 seed, just know history, not exactly on your side.
All right, now that the criteria, according to Fortenbaugh, has been laid out with some historical context, let's start power ranking your favorite MVP bets, starting with number 3.
Number 3, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals, 9-1. He'd be higher up my list if it wasn't 9-1. I think it's worth a bet. I was looking for something around 12-1. However, he's going to win a lot of games this season. The Bengals finished dead last in the division last year, which means the last place schedule. This year's schedule, top 6 in the NFL in terms of ease. That means something in the AFC North, where the Bengals, Steelers, and Browns all have top 4 schedules in terms of difficulty. Guys capable of putting up big-time numbers in this offense. In 2021 and 2022, had at least 34 touchdown passes, had at least 4,400 passing yards in both those seasons. Coming back, offense is loaded this year.
Yeah, don't hate it. Matter of fact, I think there's a lot of outs for Joe Burrow. The offense, he should throw a lot. And if they rebound off of last year's last place finish in the AFC North and are a good team, that one could provide some value. Number 2 on your list?
Jalen Hurts, quarterback, Philadelphia Eagles. 15-1's a nice price for a guy who 2 years ago was number 2 in the MVP voting. So let's ask ourselves, what happened last year? Well, a complete breakdown in terms of communication. Nick Sirianni over-involved in the offense. Brian Johnson, offensive coordinator, possibly in over his head. We've read all about the problems this team had with offensive communication. So what did they do this offseason? Did they fix it? Sirianni says he's going to be less involved. Kellen Moore is coming in to call the offense. He's got plenty of experience. Plenty of weapons are still there. Eagles have a top 10 schedule in terms of ease. So there's plenty of reason to believe that he can rekindle that form from 2 years ago. And if he does at a price of 15-1, you're in real good shape with that ticket.
Like it more than Burrow. The price more attractive. The NFC probably easier to get a 1 or 2 seed than what Burrow will have to go through in the AFC. And I think there's a bit of a bounce back after that disastrous finish last year for Jalen Hurts. So who would be your number 1 on the list of best MVP bets right now?
In terms of pricing, value, opportunity, Matthew Stafford, quarterback of the Rams. You got to ask, why is he 30-1, right? Well, he's probably projected to not win as many games as some of these other guys. After all, the Niners are the favorite for the division. But what if you projected the Niners to win the division, or excuse me, the Rams to win the division like I am?
Ooh.
Suddenly, if you found out that was going to end up happening, it would change the pricing dramatically. So for someone who thinks the Rams win the division, I like the chances for Stafford, who's put up big numbers in this offense with Sean McVay in the past. They upgraded the offensive line this offseason. Problem is right now they're dealing with some injuries. So rolling into week 1, there's some question here, but at 30-1, it's worth a shot. Remember, all-time good guy. People love him. And if this is his final year in the NFL, if he's going to retire, that narrative could push some voters his way.
Orlovsky really must have been in your ear earlier in the show if you're throwing Stafford up there at 30-1. As a Ram fan, I mean, I won't argue it. I would love to absolutely see that. But if I'm going to go for a long shot at 30-1, how about switching out Stafford for this second-year signal caller? Not C.J. Stroud, but Anthony Richardson, who I know we saw just a few snaps from him, 4 games in limited time in 2023, but my goodness, how effective was he? Shane Steichen, I think, is a great coach/coordinator. He's got weapons around him, and he's a guy who can not only throw, but like Jalen Hurts, he might add a lot of value with his legs as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts give the Texans a run for their money in that division.
Stats will be there. I think the wins could be there as well. Pricing-wise, it's intriguing. It's just baffling to me that the price of 30-1, which is where you're finding a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's won a bunch of games before, who's been around for a few years, where 30-1 you can find someone like Matthew Stafford. 4 games he's played, and he was hurt twice in that 4-game stretch. But you're betting on upside here. And if he stays healthy, the stats are going to be there.
Williams is the plus 140 favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, followed by Jaden Daniels and Marvin Harrison Jr. ESPN Bet also offering a yes-no market on if Williams will win the award. Yes, plus 140. No, or the field, minus 180. So, Joe, let's bring it back here to the desk. I'm curious how you feel about that specific one. Caleb versus everyone else?
Yeah, I'll take everybody else at minus 180. First thing you want to do with bets like this, you want to do the conversion. What does minus 180 mean? Convert it to the probability, 64%. Once you have that, then ask yourself, do I think this bet has a greater than, less than, or equal than 64% chance of happening? I think the field has a much greater than 64% chance of having this happen. Number one, if Williams gets hurt at all, it's over and we win the bet because we have everybody else. Number two, this is not a QB-dependent award like the MVP is. All right, QBs have only won this 4 times in the last 11 years. Wide receivers get some serious looks here, as do running backs. So at that price, I'm absolutely playing the field.
Absolutely with you. Again, taking away the injury risk that you inherit by having just one player that you can rely on in Caleb Williams. He has significant merit-based competition. Jaden Daniels could be really, really good. What he can do with his legs, what Bo Nix looked like, what J.J. McCarthy might be. I know Puka Nacua did not win Rookie of the Year last year, but what if Marvin Harrison replicates that type of historic season at wide receiver?
Stroud was incredible last year. That's what it took to take out a guy like Puka Nacua. Stroud was incredible last season.